What's going on, Bills Mafia? The draft content does not stop, as on today's show, we have a day 2 NFL mock draft for your Buffalo Bills, who hold picks 56 and 62 in round 2. And we have top targets for day 2 of the draft as well, names that we do not have mocked at 56 and 62 on today's show. So before we get into who the Bills are selecting late in round 2, let's recap round 1 real quick as to who went in on Thursday night. Cam Warden, 1-1 overall QB out of Miami to the Titans, followed by Travis Hunter as the Jags traded up from 5-2 with the Browns to go to Duval County. Abdul Carter, the edge out of Penn State, he heads to Big Blue, and the Giants. Will Campbell, the tackle from LSU, goes to the Pats at 4. Meanwhile, Mason Graham is the Browns trade down target at 5. Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders at 6. Going to electrify that Pete Carroll offense. Armand Membu, the O-lineman out of Mizzou, to the Jets at 7. Ted McMillan getting a weapon for Bryce Young and the Panthers at 8. And then Kelvin Banks Jr. to the New Orleans Saints at 9, fortifying their offensive line. Colston Loveland, one of the shocks of the draft, first tight end off the board to the Bears at 10. Michael Williams out of Georgia going to the 49ers at 11. Tyler Booker, another shock, honestly, to the Cowboys at 12. And then Kenneth Grant to the Dolphins at 13, D-tackle out of Michigan. Oh, it was a Bills draft target for sure. He went early. Tyler Warren out of Penn State, the dynamic tight end. He goes at 14 to the Colts. Jalen Walker kind of slips a little bit, some injury concerns. Edge out of Georgia goes to the Falcons at 15. Walter Nolan, another Bills draft target, D-tackle out of Ole Miss, goes to the Cardinals at 16. Then Shamar Stewart, the developmental edge rusher, goes to the Bengals at 17. Gray Zabel, interior offensive lineman out of North Dakota State, goes to Seattle at 18. And Meke Ibuka, another Bills draft target, to be quite honest with you guys. He goes at 19th overall to Tampa Bay. The Broncos pick up Jahdae Barron, and I really wish that Brandon Beane thought about trading up to this spot to select Jahdae, but he goes to Denver at 20. Derek Harmon, again, another Bills draft target off the board at 21 to Pittsburgh. Amarian Hampton goes to Jim Harbaugh and the LA Chargers at 22. Matthew Golden, there's another Bills draft target. He goes to Green Bay at 23. Donovan Jackson at Ohio State, the O-lineman, goes to Minnesota at 24. They had issues there. Then the Giants traded back into the first round with the Houston Texans, and they get Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss, the gunslinger. James Pierce Jr. goes to the Falcons at 26 as they traded back up into round 1 with the Rams. Malachi Starks, another Bills draft target, off the board at 27 to the Ravens. Tyleik Williams at Ohio State, another Bills draft target. Oh, man, they're flying off the board to the Lions at 28. And then Josh Connolly out of Oregon, the tackle. He goes at 29. Maxwell Hairston, your Buffalo Bills first-round draft pick, the speedy outside boundary corner. Can't wait for him to get on the football field at 30. And then rounding out the first round, Jahad Campbell, off-ball linebacker out of Bama, to the Eagles. And then Josh Simmons out of Ohio State, the other tackle, goes to the Chiefs at 32. So with all those players off the board, a lot more names to be selected in the NFL draft. Who do you want the Bills to draft today on day 2? Drop a name for me down in the comment section, and we are going to get into the day 2 mock draft for your Buffalo Bills. With the 56th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills and myself select Carson Schwezinger, the linebacker out of UCLA. And you know what? It's not the most pressing need for Buffalo, but this is a player who was talked about as somebody who's a draft riser late in the process. His private workout wowed scouts across the league, and he was somebody who's talked about as somebody who could potentially be picked by Buffalo at 30th overall. Did have a minor hamstring injury that kept him out of the Senior Bowl, limited him at the combine, did not get to participate, and that kind of, sunk his stock a little bit. Then once he has this pre-draft workout, private in front of scouts, he wows them. And he's got good size, 6'2", 240. This is a guy who can do everything on the football field, a tackling machine, but also what I think to be the Matt Milano replacement down the line, as he is a great coverage linebacker as well. Had 2 interceptions in 2024, forced 5 incompletions with a PBU. And you know what? Yeah, he allowed 3 touchdowns. Yeah, he allowed a passer rating of 100. But honestly, not too bad for an off-ball backer at this point who, it was only a 1-year full-time starter at UCLA when, he really took his game to the next level in 2024, totaling 136 tackles. This is somebody who the Bills are, looking at. This is definitely somebody who's on their radar, and he can get to the quarterback as well if you send him on a blitz. 4 sacks in the 2024 season as well, 9 TFLs. He can support in the run. He can support in the pass game. And with Matt Milano only on a 1-year contract the rest of the way with his Bills tenure, this could be the next great Bills green dot guy. Adam Schefter said this about Schlesinger moving up boards. He said UCLA linebacker Carson Schlesinger, projected by many as a day 2 pick, has a chance to go in the end of round 1 to a team such as the Commanders at 29 or the Bills at 30 that might be looking for additional defensive help. So this is a player who I kind of believe in for Buffalo. And if they believe that he can be an impact player off the bat, Matt Milano's only played 9 games over the past 2 seasons, then I'm all in on Schlesinger coming to Buffalo. I know it doesn't fill the biggest pressing need, but he might be the best player available on the board if he's there at 56. Now moving on to pick 62, Buffalo selects TJ Sanders, the defensive tackle out of South Carolina, the Gamecock, coming to the 7-1-6 to fill up the middle and the interior of that defensive line. TJ Sanders is not a name that we've talked about too much on the show so far, but he is a player that Buffalo hosted on a pre-draft visit. And with the D-tackle selections kind of flying off the board when I did this mock draft, TJ Sanders was the best available player. And it's somebody who can plug and play right away, kind of start over Daquan Jones and stuff the run. Meanwhile, he also had 4 sacks and 33 pressures back in 2024. So he's a little bit of a dual threat as well. Can get his hand on the football, swatting them at the line of scrimmage. And listen, he didn't wow. He didn't jump off the page with a number of TFLs last season. But you know what? He has been incredibly productive in a very tough SEC. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm excited for the Bills to address the interior of the defensive line. I think TJ Sanders very well might be the best available. According to our scouting report from Tom Downey, he says a rotational player early with the upside of an impactful starter. So exactly what the Buffalo Bills are looking for in round 2 defensive tackles. Plays bigger than his weight and is able to shed blockers with his length and will play too tall and fails to finish at times. So obviously going to be a flawed prospect in round 2, but at the end of the day, Buffalo, they need a D tackle, and I saw TJ Sanders on the board, liked his production, liked his size, and I think he'd be a good fit. Grade the D2 mock draft for me, though, down in the comments section. Carson Schlesinger, linebacker out of UCLA at 56. I think this is a great he ends up sliding there, and the Bills can't pass him up. And they take TJ Sanders at 62, D tackle out of South Carolina. Grade it for me, A, B, C, D, or F, down in the comments. Let's close today's show with more day 2 draft targets, names that are not on the mock draft that we just did. And I'm only going one player per position. So the Bills, they have a lot of versatility out there. They have depth, they have needs at safety, they have needs at receiver, they have needs at edge, they have needs at other D tackle. So we're going to go 5 positions here, and starting with Xavier Watts at that safety spot. Now, Nick Emanwori, the athletic freak out of South Carolina, is still out there on the board, but there are some concerns. He was pegged as a first-round pick, has fallen into day 2. If the Bills have the opportunity to pick him, and they do, I would not be mad at it at all. But Xavier Watts is my favorite coverage safety in this draft. He just looks like he's a baller out there. He's a true ball hawk, and I think he's a plug-and-play player who could start at the free safety right away for Buffalo, like Xavier Watson. He played in some big football games, had some big moments in 2024. What about Darius Alexander? Now, this is a player who was not available when pick 62 came up. He's also not available when 56 came up, if I remember correctly. So I would love if Darius Alexander slid all the way to the Bills' selections at the back end of round 2. He is a big body defensive tackle, somebody who could stop the run and get to the quarterback as well. So with Buffalo needing DT, I would probably have Darius Alexander above TJ Sanders in my rankings. So if he falls all the way to 56 or 62, I would be pounding on the door for Buffalo to go select him. What about Landon Jackson at edge, the athletic freak out of Arkansas? This is somebody who the Bills have had on a top 30 visit this offseason, and they are going to need depth at that edge rusher spot. Joey Bosa on a 1-year deal, and he's had injury histories. Michael Heck suspended, and Epinesa. What are we really getting out of him at this point, other than rotational work? I think Landon Jackson is somebody who could, usher in and be this starter in 2026 after Joey Bosa's 1-year deal if they don't feel like re-signing him or paying him the money that he thinks he deserves. Landon Jackson, I think he can get sideline to sideline at that edge spot and impact the run game as well. What about running back Caleb Johnson? Not exactly the player that James Cook and skill set that James Cook has for Buffalo, but this is a bruising back, somebody who sheds off tacklers, does not go down at the first contact, and I think he just provides a totally different element to this Buffalo Bills offense. If they decided to go RB and they're flying off the board and they think that Caleb Johnson can transform their offense and help give them a different dynamic in the run game, then I'm all over it, man. He is a stud, and I know running back's not the biggest need, but James Cook wants $15 million, and I'm not sure I'm ready to pay him that. And then wide receiver. I decided to go with Trey Harris here. Now, there are some names. Jaden Higgins was the other name I was wrestling back and forth with, a big body receiver. So is Trey Harris, and he gets a lot of comparisons to Nico Collins. Big body, can get vertical, and when the ball's in his hands, he's another player who just does not go down at the first sight of contact. So I like Trey Harris a lot. He was super productive at Ole Miss. And if Josh wants to throw that thing down the field, then I wouldn't be too mad if Trey Harris is the one on the receiving end. But now make the call for me in the comments. Predict who the Bills will draft on day 2. Get your crystal balls out. Get your wizard hats and your fortune tellers and all that jazz. Predict it for me. Who do the Bills get at 56 and 62? Or do they trade up? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And that'll do it for today's edition of the Bills Breakdown by Chat Sports. Make sure you are subscribed for the best Bills content on YouTube, keeping you tapped in with the draft all weekend long. We'll see you guys on the next one. And as always, go Bills.